Good morning, and I'd like to welcome you to an exclusive webinar, The Value of Being Right Faster, presented by WWD. My name is Arthur Zakwitz. I'm the executive editor for WWD. And today we will be hearing from Sonia Lipinski, who's the managing director for retail at AlixPartners, and Karen Pinney, who's the chief merchandising officer at Rue21, and Gretchen Jezik, who's the Senior VP of Marketing at First Insight. They're going to be discussing how Rue21 and other retailers are leveraging data and science to improve speed to market and drive value in their business. So with that, I'd like to turn this over to Sonia to start. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you very much, Arthur. Very happy to be here. My name is Sonia Lipinski. I'm, as you said, a managing director with AlixPartners. I've spent over half my career in consulting working with retailers, brands, wholesalers, helping with operational transformations, and reinventing their product-to-market processes, which is exactly what we're going to talk about today. I've always been in product. Prior to joining Alix, I spent years in design, manufacturing, and development, including 3 years in Shenzhen, China, actually living and breathing product and helping develop and produce over there. So definitely a topic that's near and dear to my heart. Really quickly, AlixPartners, we're a global consulting firm. We've got about 1,500 consultants around the world. Retail is our largest practice area, where we have more than 100 senior leaders who are helping customers and really retailers today with some of the most pressing questions. We've got deep analytics, tailored approaches that help us drive value-driven solutions. But really, we're known for our ability to implement, and this is really our passion. We're operators first and foremost. So none of this is really meaningful unless we can actually see the results and help our clients improve in this really competitive space. So what are we here to talk about today? What is the sacred cow? The development process is that sacred cow we run into at all of the clients that we work with. Historically, we've had a very long, slow development process that we're not allowed to touch. Retailers are hinged to this process because they've thought it's been proven to give them the results, but it's no longer valid. And what we see today when we go into different clients is that we're looking at excessive approvals, too many people involved in the process, duplicative work happening in silos in many different locations. And we all know one thing, that cows are not known for their speed and flexibility. The problem is, we've got a customer and we've got a process, and they're completely misaligned. Today's customer is constantly bombarded with influences. They're on their phones, they're in social media, they're getting influences in fashion and trend from culture, from Instagram, from fashion bloggers. They want what they see and they want it now. It's not surprising that their preferences are changing as quickly as they are. And that's completely counter to how the development process works in retailers and apparel today. We're generally relying on a 6 to 12 month schedule. It's rigid, it's relying on old data, and it's expecting the consumer to like what we're designing today when it reaches the store 6 months from now. So it's completely conflicting. We're not supplying what the customer needs in this world of instant gratification. What are the behaviors that we're seeing? So basically we're seeing, because these two things don't align, we're seeing a lot of excess cost, time, and slowness in the process. What the retailers are forced to do is basically they're designing an entire development cycle and an entire line, and then they realize once they're coming up to the market that they're wrong. They've missed that critical bomber jacket that's supposed to be the next fashion trend. So they're reworking and they're redoing all of that design and development work to chase back into those winning styles. That means that they have duplicative efforts across the entire product market process. The designers are redoing their work, the developers are redoing their work, and our suppliers all over the world are having to do that as well. You can just see the cost that's being incurred in that process. It also ends up in a ton of excess waste as we're forced to get rid of all the excess development and samples that we've acquired along the way. So what do we need to do? I mean, I think it's pretty clear that retailers have to figure out how to be more accurate and how to be faster. We need to streamline the process, understand what the customer really wants, and tailor our process so that we can react to it and that we can get the right product into customers' hands when they want it. It seems pretty logical, but for some reason, it just doesn't happen. All right, we're seeing a lot on the page, but I think what we're trying to get across is that there's 3 different inputs into fixing the way that we improve our accuracy and speed. Historically, we've been trying to get customers or get retailers to move faster. So we've got a typical development cycle that's either 6 months, 8 months, 12 months long, and we're trying to reduce it from a few months here or there. We're trying to get closer to market so we can get the trends and be more right and be more accurate. Maybe if we're really innovative, we have a speed to market calendar that allows us to develop a few styles really close to market and benefit from as much information as we can. What we're seeing now is that the really innovative retailers are kind of throwing that model away and saying we don't just need one calendar and we don't need one plus a speed capsule. We need to think about multiple models. So what we need to do is understand how do we layer on multiple different speed models so that we can be constantly refreshing product and we can constantly get the customer input into that product so that we're delivering what they want, that newness, that freshness, that difference when they're looking for it. In the middle, I think most of us have figured out how to develop a structured assortment architecture. We know what the fashion pyramid looks like. We can develop into the core basics, the fashion at the top of the pyramid. But what we need to do now is tie these 2 things together. We need to take our development models. We've got our slow and steady real margin drivers that maybe don't need to be quite as quick. We need to layer on those multiple speed models on top. We need to understand what it means to develop really seasonlessly. And then we need to tailor our assortment so that every level of that assortment architecture fits into one of our development and supply chain models. That's just part of the puzzle, though. The final part we need is really to understand how do we incorporate what the customer is really asking for. So again, if you'll remember, we've got this customer who's constantly being influenced by social media and everything they're looking at their phone day to day, and the retailer is using data that's 6 months old or 12 months old from the performance that's happening in store. That's completely not helping our situation. How do we get real data-driven consumer insights pushed into the development process at the right time? So we're working with real consumer insights that help actually support what we're designing and that we're designing the right thing. Technology. We've never been in a place like we are today where technology can help us and support both our ability to be more right and to be faster, and more importantly, to take cost and out of the process and put margin back in. There is so much cost in the development cycle today. We've got sales samples where we work with retailers who can be spending 1% to 2% of total sales on samples that they're used to sell to their clients. That's mostly for brands and wholesalers. We've got development samples, which are hidden and buried in the cost of goods. We don't even know how much they cost. Every time we have to look at a product, make changes, ask for a new proto, and review it and resample and do it again. That's all buried cost that's eating into our margin. We've got fit models that can be hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. But more importantly, they take time out of the calendar. Every time we want to do a new fit, test it on a new model, that means weeks in the development process. And then finally, we've got the testing process. So the archaic process is say we're going to develop a whole range of product, we're going to put it in stores, try and get some results, and then see what happens. The problem is we get variable results we can't rely on because generally we're going to be testing outside of the normal seasonal development or normal season that it's supposed to be in the store. Plus, we've got all the time and cost that it took to get those products into the stores. It just doesn't work. Today, we've got technology that can do and kind of take time and cost out of each step of the process. The challenge is, A, picking the right product. So how do we help retailers determine where they're going to invest, where they're going to put their time behind the right technology, and then which one's going to get them the most bang for their buck? Is it going to be in real online consumer testing, which we found has great results and doesn't have any of the cost of in-store testing? Or is it going to be in reducing all of our sales samples so that we can move to digital samples instead and selling off of CADs and selling in a new and modern format? One of the biggest challenges, though, is really regardless of what technology we pick, we still have to do the change. And the change is the hard part. We need to change the process and how we work and how we think about looking at product before we can actually maximize the benefit of any of these technologies. When we think about helping improve the product to market process, we need to do it across all of these layers. We need to increase speed and be able to actually reduce the number of touch points in the process. So again, how do we think about the right use of technology to be able to eliminate touches on the product, eliminate the cost associated with that, but also be able to bring the product closer to market so that we know we're going to be more right faster. We've seen that this delivers real results in terms of higher margin in GMROI, which is your gross margin return on investment. The faster we are and closer to market and the more accurate we can be means we're making bets on the right product and we're able to sell at a higher price point and we don't have to clear as much excess inventory. That immediately contributes to your profitability. We have to reduce complexity, shifting approvals closer to the factory, reducing them all together. We want to reduce overdevelopment and really figure out how we can streamline the process end to end. Innovation is key when we're thinking about how to compete in today's retail environment. We've got to think about, again, back to those models. How do we think about development seasonlessly? There's no reason now to have an archaic 4 seasons per calendar year. Why can't we deliver product seasonlessly the way customers expect it today? They're looking online every day and seeing new product, and they're expecting the same thing when they're in stores and when they're on retailers' websites. How do we help them do that? And then finally, what about the costs associated with this really expensive and outdated process? Again, with the combination of being faster, seamlessly driving the process, and enabling the process with benefit of technology, how much cost can we actually take out? There's real ability to maximize profitability here, be more innovative, and streamline the entire process. This isn't an easy feat. Again, one of the reasons why many retailers are so slow to change is because it's really hard. This touches every functional area across the development process. It's not like you can just go in and work with one team and convince them that there's a real urgency to change and a really positive results that they can see from driving this change. We have to convince everyone along the spectrum from the beginning of the development cycle with the merchandising and planning teams, through the designers, the materials and development folks, into our sourcing and development offices, which might be here or they might be around the world. And then we still have to work with the logistics team. There's not hardly a functional area that we don't touch. So the change is hard. It's cross-functional, and there's also competing priorities that we've got to get folks over these hurdles. We've had a number of strategies that are really successful in doing this. I think one of the biggest questions we get is how do you manage the change? How do you actually drive change when you're dealing with these many different functional silos and these many different competing priorities? And I think the best thing we've learned is that you just need that test case. You need to get the team that wants to be the lead team and raise their hand and say, we're going to be the ones that are going to innovate, we're going to do things differently, and we're going to get a quick win. And as soon as you can show that quick win where they managed to develop a capsule that has had a huge bump, a 600 basis point bump in margin, and we can show that to the rest of the teams, that's a recipe for success. What AlixPartners does is we help to provide some tools that help get this done faster. So again, we've got to work with each of the teams. We've got a number of different ways that we can help move this process along. So again, we want to make sure we're understanding the entire assortment architecture and how do we improve that so that it ties into the process better. Where are all the resources today? Where are they located in the world? What are they doing? Is there duplicative work happening? And how do we rebalance that so we're focused on speed and flexibility? In many cases, that means we need to take the work and move it closer to the factories wherever they happen to be. We have to leverage the talent and the capabilities of the folks who are doing this on the ground day to day, and we have to be able to do it faster and develop that trust. We need to streamline the development process, as I've talked about, taking steps out of the process, leveraging technology, and doing whatever we can to just make sure we're streamlined and nimble. And before we even start, we need to make sure we understand where the capabilities are. We might be an organization that's super strong in merchandising, but we're not so strong on the development side, or maybe it's the inverse of that. If we don't know where we're starting, we're not sure of what the work needs to be done to get to where we need to go. So it starts with a really thorough understanding of our capabilities across the organization. We've got some great examples of wins. So when retailers are open to change and we can actually show them some quick wins and drive change, it has really meaningful results. We've got a few examples here, and I don't think we need to go into all of them. But the big takeaway is that there's meaningful dollars associated with this if we do this right. We worked with a footwear company, a multi-billion-dollar footwear company, who had many, many rounds of samples in order to get a final approval of a new product before it went into stores. They knew that was only part of the problem. We had to not only develop them, we had to ship them around the world. They were generally being manufactured in China and Vietnam. We had to store them, manage them. It was cost, it was people, it was time. It was excess around the world. It was preventing them from being nimble at all. They were doing generally about 6 development samples on average per style. When we identified parts of the process that they could eliminate, they could shift work overseas to their partners in the factories who were already doing it. So we were reducing duplication, we were leveraging the capabilities that already existed, and we were driving speed to take them down from 6 samples for development to maybe 1 to 2. We took out something like $3.5–4 million in costs. It was a huge win, and I think there's even more ways to even drive that further. This was even before we had the technology that we have on hand today. There's also, if you see on the far right example, a really good example of looking at the entire product to market process. So again, if we're going to drive meaningful results, we have to consider every one of those steps of the process and where the big roadblocks are. If we can address them and take time out of the calendar, improve our merchandising processes, tie our assortment architecture into our development cycles, be more nimble and innovative with those seasonless development cycles, and then really think about how do we incorporate consumer insights up front, early and often, we can make meaningful impact on our ability to drive margin. And in this particular case, we were able to get 350 basis points improvement when it was really tracked rigorously. So we're not just doing this to be speedy or to say we're speedy. It means when we're more right, we're driving real results. Finally, I think this is a really interesting little study that AlixPartners did back in April, and we looked at it also in October of last year. The graph on the left is showing the profitability performance of a number of public retailers. So we looked at 20 public retailers with revenues over $1 billion, and we put them into 2 different buckets. The green line represents what we called fast companies. And by this definition, it was just companies that could get new product onto the floor or online more quickly. It didn't mean they were necessarily fast fashion or what we know of fast fashion, but they were just delivering product more frequently as the consumers expected, versus the blue line, which are the slow companies. And what we found when we looked at their results is that their operating margins were generally 500 basis points higher for the fast companies than the slow companies. They were consistently beating their peers by 10 percentage points when we're looking at the fourth quarter. So that's a typical time where retailers are clearing product and having to mark down. But the companies who were delivering more often and being more right weren't having to do that. So it's super meaningful results. On the right side, the EBIT performance or the profitability performance is really because we're being more right, we're reducing inventory, we don't have to mark down product as much, we're getting higher sell-through at full price sales, and we're generally just delivering a better product with less of that clearance at the end. That's great. So I think, honestly, we've seen some really meaningful results by doing this and love to see what First Insight has seen. So I'll hand it over to you, Gretchen.
Thank you very much, Sonia. I wanted to also mention at this point that anyone who has questions is welcome to submit those via the chat box in the platform, and we'll then go through those and attempt to answer them at the end. So it's clear from what Sonia has presented that getting the right products to market faster is absolutely mission critical in today's retail environment. that's exactly what First Insight helps our customers to do, and we are, in fact, often a key enabler of the change programs that companies like AlixPartners recommend to their clients and help them implement. So I'd like to take a few minutes now to give you an understanding of the First Insight platform, and then Karen Pinney of Rue21 will share specifics around how they've been using First Insight to become both faster and more accurate. So Sonia did a really great job of describing the challenges facing retail today and those misalignments between the current retail practices and today's consumers and their expectations. Some retailers, though, are achieving success, and Kohl's is one example. This is from a report from Cowen, one of the leading analyst firms, and it was written by Oliver Chen, who actually covers Kohl's. He states that retail is about having the right products at the right time and place. He also attributes some of Kohl's success to their test, read, and react product strategy, which he views as a competitive advantage for Kohl's. And Cohen has recently placed a new outperform rating on Kohl's, partly in result of this. So where does First Insight fit into this mix? First Insight is the industry's leading customer-centric merchandising platform. So what is that? It's our platform for bringing the voice of the customer into your merchandising processes to really help you to design and select the right products, price them correctly based on what your customers are willing to pay, and then buy them in the right quantities. There are a variety of benefits that come out of this, including increased sales and margins and reduced markdowns and inventory costs. And we'll get into some more detail about that. So, what we're typically seeing out in the market as we talk with retailers and brands is something like this. Retailers are looking at a number of different data sources that range from historical sales data to, in the case of merchants in particular, there's a certain amount of gut intuition that comes into play. A variety of functional roles are trying to make sense of those different data streams in order to make decisions that are critical to the business around selecting and planning, pricing, and marketing their products. And, this is obviously fairly complicated, and the results aren't necessarily what people would always hope. For example, Gartner has published that success rates of new products are typically in the 30 to 40% range, and as Karen will tell you later, in the case of Rue21, a very low percentage of their in-store tested product was actually rebought. All of this can, relate to high markdowns on product that wasn't appropriately priced or wasn't the right product to have placed in the store in the first place. On the flip side, if companies don't effectively identify products that will be big winners, then they can run into a situation of stocking out very quickly on a product and leaving lots of revenue and margin on the table. And that also is the case in underpricing or overpricing products. So essentially we're seeing suboptimal decision-making coming out of a lot of these processes, despite really great efforts by the people in these teams. And so where First Insight comes in is introducing the voice of the customer into these decisions. And so between the voice of the customer and our predictive analytics platform, we're creating a new data stream that is essentially pulling directly from consumer feedback about new products. And we create and introduce this new data stream into these processes to inform product selection, pricing, and buying decisions. And we'll show you in a few minutes in more detail how that actually works. So the First Insight platform is a modular platform consisting of 4 key modules. insight selection, pricing, planning, and targeted marketing. It's powered by an analytics engine that leverages all these aggregated data sources that you see on the left, as well as our own real-time consumer feedback. First Insight's been doing this for 11 years with over 100 customers, and so we're using AI and machine learning to make our system continually better and more accurate. And that's this analytics engine that you see here. And so what are the typical benefits that we see out of this? On the merchandising front, for example, a national jewelry chain has reported publicly a 100% improvement in their new product success rate. Typical ranges are at least in that 30 to 80% range. In terms of inventory reduction, a large footwear company we work with has seen a 20% reduction in their overall inventories from making better decisions. Increasing conversion rates. You'll be hearing some more from Rue21 about this. They've already generated $650,000 in incremental online sales over the course of 6 months through converting engaged customers, and additionally, this was 12,000 additional consumers driven to their website. Vineyard Vines has validated the ROI of First Insight through measuring a direct increase in online conversions and full price sales. And on the consumer insights front, the data are available fast. We're talking within 24 to 48 hours and often even faster. Comparing that to market research, which can take at least a month or two, or in-store testing, as Karen will share, which is a multi-month process, the data are available a lot more quickly, driving decisions more quickly. So, this is essentially why so many companies across geographies and categories, large and small, in wholesale and retail, are working with First Insight to get the right products to market faster. So let's dive into the platform and how it actually works. So the first step is to engage with consumers via email or via social media, as you'll hear more about that from Karen. And in many cases, increasingly this is happening on mobile devices. Upwards of 70% and growing of consumers are receiving this contact and playing through this game on a mobile device. And so, this is essentially reaching out to, in this case, engaged consumers who are Rue21 customers or target customers, and, asking them for their input about the product. So this is a branded experience. It looks and feels like it's coming from, in this case, Rue21, because, in fact, this email or Instagram outreach is coming from the company. When a consumer, though, clicks where it says Start Game, they actually will be taken over to the First Insight portal to play through that experience. But as far as they know, this is still an engagement directly with this brand or this retailer. And so as a first step, consumers are asked a few questions, and these are completely tailorable by the retailer or brand. And so again, Karen will tell you more about how they've been leveraging this information to really increase their depth of understanding of their customers. We see wholesalers using this. For example, they might ask a question, where do you generally buy your shoes? And they could list a listing of retailers from, Nordstrom to Target to Walmart, whatever. And then they are able to segment the data on the back end of this test to understand where the respondents are purchasing their shoes, in this case, and they can then feed back to their retail partners, okay, here's what consumers who are buying in your channel say about these products, and this is why we're recommending this assortment at these prices for you. Next, the consumers see a series of new products that they wish to test and on which they want to get input. And the key things that are requested here are comments about, what do you think somebody would pay, in this case, for this dress? And that's the slider bar that you see in the middle. And then they're also asked, do you love it or do you hate it? And that's the sentiment that's shared about the product. And importantly, there's also an opportunity to give direct feedback and open field comments about these products. And those are extremely useful to merchants and particularly designers as they are trying to understand why a product tested the way it did. If it did better or worse than in particular, they can really understand what the drivers were by looking at repeated comments about the product. And so once these data are collected around what people said that they think people would pay for a product in the market, and the sentiment data of love it, hate it, or somewhere in between, we then apply our algorithm to the data and are able to provide for each of the products tested a value score. And this value score is predictive of that product's future performance in the market. And Karen will talk some more about how they've been leveraging this information. But essentially, across time, across geographies, across categories, across retail and wholesale, the value scores have been predictive of products' performance once they actually go to market, with 10s being the best and 1s being the worst. And so overall, this creates a winning equation by combining the voice of the customer with predictive analytics, getting to market faster, and that is a key ingredient, that equation, into success of new products. So trying to pull this all together in terms of why companies are picking to work with First Insight. So the value has really been proven over time and in a number of different ways with well over 100 customers. We help with getting our customers' teams trained and supporting their adoption of the solution. And again, Karen will give you more information about this from a Rue 21 perspective. We have the ability to track the decisions that are made using the tool and the value that's driven from those. And that's really important for understanding what you're getting from the implementation of a tool. In terms of the technology, we're leveraging, as I said, machine learning and AI. Speed is really key, and you're trying to take time out of your processes. So the ability to get results in 24 to 48 hours or even faster is really important. Gartner has included First Insight in their Hype Cycle for Retail Technologies for the past 6 years in a category that they actually call customer-centric merchandising, which is really what we're talking about today. The platform really is easy to use and to integrate. A lot of our customers start small, particularly focusing on product selection, and then expand from there. We're able to integrate with PLM systems, and we're actively doing that to pull the information that's needed for running tests into our platform and then re-exporting the results back into the PLM system. Downstream, we can integrate with your planning and pricing systems for a seamless end-to-end merchandising process. The solution is global. We're operating in 30 countries and 20 languages. And we also have a mobile platform for your merchants to be able to use on the go. And it works the way your merchants work, which is fast and constantly moving. So, these are some of the key reasons that companies have been adopting the First Insight platform. So, I actually had a couple of people ask me, why would you have Rue 21 featured in a WWD webinar given that they've just gone through a bankruptcy process? That's exactly why we should want to hear from Rue 21 to learn about how they're turning their business around. We tend to have two types of companies that come to us, those that are working to turn around their business and really recognize the need to do this and see in First Insight a tool and a platform that can really help them. There are also those who are quite successful, like Lilly Pulitzer and Vineyard Vines, who realize that they need to keep listening to their customers to stay out in front. So Route 21 absolutely has a very relevant story to tell, and I'm happy at this point to turn things over to Karen Pinney, who's Chief Merchandising Officer of Route 21. Karen brings both a wealth of experience and, as you'll hear, a wealth of energy to absolutely everything she does, including this presentation. And Karen will share with you the story of Route 21, why they engaged with First Insight, and the impact that it's having in their business. So over to you, Karen.
Why Route 21 is right. What better way to try and do a turnaround than have somebody with great experience and great knowledge help us expand our product base and do it much quicker. Route 21 is part of the junior specialty section. And who are we? We live in fast fashion. I'm actually in Southern California in the fast fashion market, and our mission is to offer stylish apparel and accessories for guys, girls, and plus sizes in a very small box. We believe that everybody should look and feel great, and we believe that we are here to help bridge fashion and value for our customers. I want to say that we are one of the first people that have really embraced First Insight, all the way down from the top of our pyramid chain, from our CEO all the way down to our assistants. We have an amazing group of buyers who really are young and enthusiastic. And when they had a chance to play around with this technology, it became game on. They couldn't wait to see who was going to get the first 10, which was the perfect score on First Insight, where they knew they had they had a winner, and they would walk around basically ringing a bell. Did you see my 10? Did you see my 10? And they became very, very competitive. This was the first time these buyers could actually see, after coming out of a bankruptcy and some dismal numbers, to sit there and say, I've got a bestseller rack. No, wait, I've got 5 bestseller racks. And we could attribute great portions of that to First Insight. So why we really felt this was important for us is that we needed to pivot our business very, very quickly. Obviously, coming out of Chapter 11, it was critical that we reestablish who our customer was. We did a great marketing research study, but we really needed to dig down even deeper and get into the product piece of it. So we started to really look into who our customer was. And we've got a little bit of a unique customer base here. We have a chain that's actually split down the middle. It's 750 stores, with about half of the stores living in what we would call a fashion-forward section or an urban section, and an on-trend or a more middle America section. And so First Insight really allows us to take the products and get the customer's feedback very quickly and very in-depth discussions about what they like about the product, and it gives us a clear picture of who our customer is and really what they're willing to pay for it. And being in that value price part of the equation, this becomes incredibly important. Our First Insight results indicated what our customers' appetite was for the trend and how big and how fast we could make it. We worked with our planning partners to see where we could shift dollars around from what was working on First Insight and what wasn't, and to maximize those trends. We can take and figure out how fast we need to move that trend. Do I move it to a domestic production? Do I have enough time to move it to Mexico or China and make it even bigger and more of a value play? Where does it live on the fashion pyramid? This all came from First Insight. First Insight also allows the program to communicate with our customers. We actually got real-time data feedback from our customers, and that it wasn't just, I liked it, I didn't like it. It was what they exactly liked about it, and our customers were extremely vocal. They were very excited to engage in it, and they had no problem telling us that they hated the color pink, but they really liked the color green. And who would have thought pine green and mustard would have been the top sellers for this season in the junior market? Well, we did, because we saw it on First Insight. And how did we get busy? Well, we got busy fast. And fast is the only way we know how to work at Route 21. And First Insight was the perfect solution for us. We found that we needed to begin this study in March, and we needed to predict what we were going to do for back to school, and that is a very, very short lead time. We deploy our tests about every 2 weeks, and we read them within 2 to 3 days of the test closing. We initially had some pushback by some of our more senior buyers. And why did we have that? They didn't understand what artificial intelligence was and what it could really do for us and how it could turn a star into a superstar. This became a competition with my team, a friendly competition, but a competition. The girls' team had struggled for many years. The guys' team had been extremely successful. Well, the girls' team started to see success on First Insight. And as they like to say, they were coming for the guys' team. And we leveraged our First Insight findings to make sure that we were jumping on the right fashion at the right time. And we were making sure we were finding winners that could become grand slam home runs, not just a first base hit. Understanding our customer. Since our customer is split between two different segments, not only are they looking for value price, they're also split into a mindset. So they may be under the age of 21, but they still want to look 21. They may be 30, and they look in that mirror and they say, nope, I'm still pretty much 21. So we had to find the products that would actually work for both of those. We, in addition, needed to make sure that we addressed very different customers in those two different segments, the on-trend and our fashion-forward customers. And we were able to start pinpointing this by the questions that we were asking, where our customers were shopping. And we started to see more and more that Forever 21 and Charlotte Russe were popping up, but so were Walmart, Target, TJ, Marshalls, and Ross, which really told us we needed to focus in on the price compression piece of our value equation and make sure that we were really offering great fashion, great value at the right time, and more importantly, at the right price. We wanted to be able to reduce our markdowns and really clean up our floors very, very quickly. The deeper understanding of our customer. Somebody asked me once, how do you describe her? And I couldn't really come up with one, but this picture really describes it. These are my two customers, and we love her. And this is just in the girls' version. She is somebody who is hip and happening, and somebody who is also hip and happening in her own way. She sees it a little bit later on the trend curve. All of these items that you see are up here are items that we tested on First Insight and resulted in amazing numbers. The items on the left became an 85,000 unit buy that we were able to turn around in 8 weeks. The items on the right we were able to chase into, minus the denim jacket, within 4 weeks, and they became part of a 75,000 unit buy, both extremely successful with 80 to 85% sell-throughs expected at regular price. Reaching our customer. Well, as we talked about earlier, instant gratification is really part of what this sector is, and really what sets apart great retailers is making sure that they are getting their customers what they need in an instant, and we are making them happy. Well, in our world, it's a little bit more complicated. Instant gratification takes too long for this sector. They are constantly on their phones. They are constantly seeing what's happening. They are bombarded by social media. They are bombarded by, Snapchats, and they have no problem being very vocal on what they like and they don't like on Instagram. We started to move more and more of our testing to pick up on that Instagram piece, and you could see that 54% of our respondents were 17 and under, which is amazing because how do you capture that information? They don't have credit cards. This was a great insight to us, and we were able to make some significant changes to our assortment and also to our sizing structure. The slide you see before you was the turning point for my team at Rue 21. This was a First Insight test that we ran versus an in-store test. The shoe that you see is an example of a kitten heel shoe, and it was something that was really, really pushed by the junior shoe market. And we looked at it, and I was like, I don't think so. So we tested this against a group of shoes that were a little bit more traditional in heel. We got this up on First Insight in a matter of 3 days once we saw the assortment, and I started to be a little nervous. And we were able to get the feedback back from First Insight after we launched the test, got everything in within 2 days. We were able to change the production time, change the heel. We already owned all of the base raw materials, but we were able to change the heel and the sole of the construction of the shoe and put it into the right product. And what did that do for us? Well, literally, this would have been a $2 million markdown. So what happened with this? We read these results as a team, and when my team saw what this could do, it completely changed the dynamics. They were testing maybe 3-4 items a week. It went exponentially up from there. The other great part, and this is one of the things that we really embrace from First Insight, is what our customer is willing to pay. Because we are in that value price sector and we really need to offer great value and great fashion at the same time, we were able to use the First Insight tools to see where we could capture the bulk of the demand. We found that at $12 we would get 60%, but if we ran it at a $10 promotion, we would create 83% of the demand would be captured. So we were able to go back, increase our buys, leverage our fabric, get better costing, and really turn a lot more units and create a sense of urgency with our customer because we knew what price it was. We didn't have to play around with it. We bought the exact amount. We got in, we got out, and we went on to the next thing. Optimizing our assortment, another favorite here with First Insight. Because we have two different segments that we go to, our on-trend and our fashion-forward, we will run tests that are across both lines. This happens to be a vertical stripe. We also included horizontal stripes. This test here was a home run for us. Why? Because you can see that our on-trend customer, which is what is a little bit slower to react to fashion, was a 3 on the value scale, which means they really didn't get it yet. But our fashion-forward customer was a 9, and they totally understood this, and they knew that this was something great. But what was even more important, there was no problem with the price that we wanted. The sentiment was 55% of the customer base had a reaction to it, and it was at a 9, which to us means slam dunk, home run, close the door, we're ready, we're going to buy this, and we're going to buy this big. Business impact. How does this First Insight really affect us? Well, runway debut. It's not really a runway debut. What we like to say is it's the Instagram effect. So this is where the customer is really seeing it on Instagram. It's on Cardi B. It's on Drake. It's on Drake's Boys. It's on the Kardashians. They're seeing it out there in real life versus just on a catwalk. So we pull that information and we use that to figure out where we're going to put that on our fashion trend. So if you think about the fashion trend being at 12 o'clock, and that's where Instagram lives, our customers who are fast fashion live at the 1 o'clock time cycle. So they have now just seen it on Instagram and they're starting to talk about it. And our on-trend customers, which really live at 2 o'clock, have seen it on their friends, not just on Cardi B, and now they're ready to buy. So this really helps us gauge when and where to launch the products. We may test a product, not get the results that we think are right. It may be too fast in the trend cycle, and we'll go back and retest it and see where it moves on the value portion of the equation. If it starts to move higher up the scale, we know we're just starting to climb the trend line. The right trends, the right time, the right segment, this is really what the crux of First Insight is for us. It's the initial value assessment. We gained 6 percentage points in margin just on the short amount of time that we have been able to use First Insight. And where are we going next? Well, First Insight is helping Rue 21 move forward and take back our market share. We're leveraging our pricing information to better cater to our value customer, to look for great fast fashion products, which is what I'm doing here in sunny LA at this early hour of the morning. And we are maximizing this. We are leveraging fabrics. We are leveraging trends. We are making sure that we are using the strategic portion of First Insight for planning the season. We work with our planning partners who are amazing at helping us juggle moving money around and being able to chase into trends at the drop of a hat. We also sit there and we build a very informed base with our vendors. We tell them that we want a First Insight. They are very quick to provide their showroom samples for us, or go to our print houses and have prints included. And even better yet, we're working on a swim assortment. Who wants to buy swim? What do you know about swim so far out, and especially in a fickle world with teenagers? Well, we got some great First Insight results. And for the first time in probably 3 years, the swim team is very confident about what they're buying in the swim market. So, what do we do with all of this information? I can tell you every Saturday or Sunday morning when our administrator sends out the test results, my phone sounds like a slot machine. It is text messages that are going off or emails that are going off between the buyers and to me saying, did you see what I got on First Insight? Did you see my 10? Did you see my 7? Don't worry, I've got this, and this coming in. Or if it wasn't good, they start to dig into the questions that we asked the customers and what did they respond. It didn't come out well, we only got a 6, but you know what? We only got a 6 because they didn't like the color red. But they liked the color blue, so we transferred all of the assortment into the right colors, so we still had a home run. Those questions that the customers answered for us gave us just as much insight into any test that we would have run in our stores. And as said earlier, we really did a lot of testing in our stores, but only about 3% we reacted to. Here with First Insight, we've got clear definitions of what a successful test is and how we can maximize it. We had a test that was so good, our product was on a 3 weeks of supply for back to school. We went back after that product for holiday. It is going to be a major statement, and we're talking 100,000 units of a look, of a style, at a price that we know our customer has already reacted to. And to me, that smells like we're printing money. And all fast fashion needs to be fast, right? I mean, we can't just say we are fast. We really need to be fast. We got to jump those hurdles we talked about. We need to have a strategy, and First Insight gives us that ability to have the strategy. We sit and talk about every test. What worked, what didn't, what could we do better? Where are the opportunities for us? Speed and accuracy are so critical, and especially in this sector, that 18 to 22-year-old where you get the attention span of 5 minutes, if you're lucky, when they peek up from their phones. We need to make sure that we're getting the right product in front of them very, very quickly, and we are cutting down the outside noise. By getting the right product, we reduce our markdowns. We can constantly have new flow of product. It gets my team out to Los Angeles every 4 weeks. We're delivering new product every 4 to 5 weeks based on the First Insight strategy in a lot of categories, and that says a lot. We're also delivering product out of China as quick as 8 weeks from the results of First Insight. That's unheard of. That, to me, is true speed to market. And
Karen, thank you so much.
That about covers us for the value of being right and faster. We have passed some really good-looking product in the market. Our vendors told us it was going to be a home run, but you know what? It was that kitten heel boot. It was a color story that made no sense for the junior sector, and you know what? It saved us. We came through back to school in a much better shape. So we are really looking forward to the next steps with First Insight as we start to insight holiday and into spring. And yes, I did say First Insight holiday. We're still testing items for holiday, and what are we going to blow up as our big stories?
Karen, thank you so much. That was great. We have time for some questions. If you want to drop some questions into the chat box. And in the meantime, while we're waiting for that, Karen, I just have a couple of questions for you. Can you just go over, I know you had that kind of turning point that you mentioned. One, what are some of the best practices for your staffing and in regard to supporting your initiative with First Insight? And can you describe when your team really hit that turning point when using the tool? Can you make them a little tangible for us?
Sure. Actually, the staffing of First Insight, we have an amazing woman, Elaine Gadash, who was part of the Route 21 family and left us and came back for a return journey. And she has a great understanding of the Rue customer and also of the buying procedures at Rue. So we work hand in hand with Elaine, the buyers and the assistants, in making sure that we are getting our tests validated against the right product, that we are asking the right questions. So, for example, Elaine would be saying, we're looking at swimwear, but we're really at the time of year where they wouldn't be buying swimwear. Let's make sure we're asking the question, this is for swimwear next year, would you wear it? So Elaine has been an integral part of not only helping us ask the right questions, but also interpret the data. Say, just as much as, this was a great score out of 7, but it could have been a 10, and here's the reasons why, because this is what the customer was telling us. So Elaine has been really instrumental in us making this work, and I highly recommend all of you finding an Elaine if you're going to use a First Insight, but you can't have mine. And what was the turning point? The turning point was the day when I walked past Elaine's office, and there were 9 rolling racks in her office after the team saw that boot strategy come up, and they realized, holy cow, I can go from just being somebody with a few items in a bestseller to multiple rolling racks of best-selling items. So that was our turning point. When I saw those 9 racks, I knew my very young, very excited team bought into this program, hook, line, and sinker.
Thanks, Karen. We have a question. I think Gretchen, if you could answer this one. What are some of the merchandising classifications, I guess, product categories that you've had the best return on using the platform? And what are some of the key metrics that are important in regard to like KPIs that you use to measure success? It sounded like with Karen, you had a 600 basis point, gain in margins. Is that where it's at?
Yeah, great question. Thanks, Arthur. So we've tested product classifications from apparel to footwear, home products, furniture, jewelry, food products even, and have seen strong ROI in all of those categories. In terms of important KPIs, so we're always watching for an increase in and measuring an increase in sell-through and sales units and dollars, an increase in margin, reductions in inventory, and reductions in markdowns. Now, typically we are seeing between a 300 and 900 basis point increase in gross margins, and so what you just mentioned from the Rue 21 example is right in the midpoint of that. We've also seen typical reductions in markdowns of 25%. So those are some indicators of the kind of ROI that we're seeing across categories.
Sonia, what have you found to be successful in regard to continuing progress, where there's maybe a cultural resistance, within an organization?
Yeah, thanks, Arthur. Well, I think the Rue 21 examples are great. You have to get some real excitement from the organization behind some new technology or a change in process. But what we found, as I mentioned earlier, is that you need to see the quick wins. So the faster you can get a test program up and running to do some quick tests, either with something like First Insight or with a speed program, and get some real results, then that generates excitement and gets the rest of the team wanting to get on board and change.
And Sonia, how long does implementing kind of these changes and realizing increases in speed to market, how long does that usually take? What's kind of the timeline?
Well, as is the theme of the day, it's all about speed. So if we're going to wait and actually try and start a brand new development cycle, wait till one ends, it could take months and months to get something in place. But what we found is that we want to get something in place as quickly as possible. So we'll look at whatever season is in play, and even if it means that we have to layer on a process on top just to get those quick wins, we're going to do it right away. So we're going to go in with some almost ready-to-go models that we can deploy at a retailer, customize them very quickly, and I'm talking in a number of weeks, a couple of weeks, not months, figure out what makes the retailer unique, and so definitely tailor it for that retailer, figure out the right technology to implement with it, and then get it in place within a number of weeks so that we can start to see some results quickly.
I think we have less than we have about a minute and a half left. It would be great if each of you could just maybe give some closing thoughts on what was presented today. I know there's a lot of information. The deck is going to be available if you just email Gretchen if you have follow-up questions as well. Sonia, any closing thoughts on and key takeaways?
Yeah, I think the one thing to take away is that speed and accuracy, it's no longer a nice to have. These are critical. It's critical to compete in today's environment, and it's critical to bring the customers, the consumers, what they want. And what we've seen from the Rue 21 examples and from our examples is that if we don't get these new processes put in place, we're walking away from real margin dollars, real profitability.
Karen, any closing thoughts from you?
Sure. Well, we obviously know speed is in our vocabulary. It's actually in our DNA. I think one of the things, if I were people listening to this, I'd say, well, how do you really prove that this really works? We did do a proof of concept initially with First Insight to really validate with some of our best sellers with them. And honestly, I was shocked by how accurate it was. It was almost scary. So what I'd like to say is, don't be afraid of the change. Be able to embrace it, and fast is faster. It's no longer just being the first on something. It is being able to understand it and now being able to predict it. And that's what First Insight does. It really helps us predict.
Thank you. Gretchen, any final thoughts as we wrap up here?
Yeah, just briefly, I think it's clearly important to find and engage a partner to help through the change process. Someone with a record of success to help you implement the organizational and process changes, and also that, as we've been saying, being fast in and of itself is not enough, because getting the wrong product to market quickly still doesn't move your business forward. So getting the product right is definitely important. And finally, it's doable. I mean, you've heard Karen. They're doing it, and there are others out there at various points on their journeys as well. And so we just encourage companies to be brave and make it happen.
Gretchen, thank you so much. Karen, Sonia, thank you. This is definitely insightful, and I appreciate everybody taking time out today. Thank you.